Hey friends, it's Pastor Michael here with my better half. Our hope is that you'll find laughter, joy, and inspiration through some of our zany family stories. Okay, episode number 3. So, you're looking at me again in a certain kind of way, like you're not happy with me, but we're going to do this anyway, so here it is.
Okay.
So we've shared our origin story in the last episode, but I think now we need to cover a topic. Like we need to talk about like real marriage stuff because, you know, we pretend like this is a marriage podcast, but we've just told stories about our family up to this point. So I think we should talk about the one thing that I think that we are really good at, and it's the agree to disagree.
Amen.
And it's not like we're giving in. It's not like we're saying the other person doesn't matter or your opinion isn't valid. I think what we've gotten good at is recognizing that we don't always know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always have the right answer, and we're willing to submit to the other person's expertise, I guess is the better way to say that. So, like, I am not paternal by nature. You know, if a kid falls and they scrape their knee, I'm like, rub some dirt in it, you're okay. And you're the exact opposite. Like, you're very nurturing and loving and caring. And so we have a very different parenting style, but it's not a bad thing. I am known as the enforcer. Don't make me call your dad. And you are the nurturer. Adeline was crying last night outside of our door because she wanted to sleep in our bed.
Mm-hmm.
I was dead to the world, which is not normal for me. Like, normally I'm the one she keeps awake.
I was going to say, I typically don't wake up.
And you
I
don't,
heard it.
you never hear it. And you heard it last night. And so you went out and you sat with her. I would have laid in bed and yelled, get up and get to bed. Like, I would have never even gotten out of bed for that. Anyhow, so I think that that's a good point. But then I think the reason this topic came up to me was we're going to come into an election season, which is going to be uncomfortable for people. Like people, we've lost the technique of conversation. And that's been a big part of our marriage, like understanding where you come from, your background, how you see things, how you were raised, how you were taught, versus all of the same things for me. Like, life has been very different from both of us in our upbringing.
Yeah.
And then having to mesh those two lifestyles into one. And I always like to tell the story that the only time I ever thought that you were actually going to divorce me was right after we bought the house. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was sitting there picking staples out of the floor because we had pulled that carpet out. And I remember calling you and saying, if we're doing this, you need to tell me now because I got to call the realtor and get this house back on the market. I mean, I'll never forget that. And it was over something that was kind of politically motivated, but it was for you emotional and it was for me logical, which is a very different thing.
Yeah.
And you were invested in it emotionally. I was invested in it logically. I'm thinking as a first family, as a pastor and his wife, we can't do those types of things. And you're like, no, that's the reason we should be doing those types of things. And so it was just different for us to see the difference in culture. And I shouldn't say culture, the way that we were raised and then how we respond to that. Now, at that point, we had what? We had all of our kids because we took, nobody was born in the house that we're in. Yeah. So it wasn't like it was new news. We knew these things about each other buying that house, but that was a real pressure point. It was a real pressure point.
Yeah.
But we learned how to agree to disagree, but we didn't just not talk about it. We agreed to disagree on having an amicable outcome. I'm never going to see it exactly how you see it. You're never going to see it exactly how I see it, but we can learn how to just accept that you have valid emotions for what you think, and I have valid emotions for what I think.
Yeah.
So have you had any of those, give me one that sticks out to you? One of those moments in our marriage that sticks out to you. Deep breath.
Well, I would say a lot of parenting in general.
Yeah, agreed.
We agree to disagree. Not to say that I'm like the default parent.
Yes.
So I obviously stay home with the kids. They always come to me anyway. But that doesn't mean that I get to have all the rules with the,
Yeah.
like your opinion matters. You're also
Yeah.
their parent, but generally how we parent kind of falls on me.
That is correct.
So I think generally, like some things I've had to, okay, like I didn't like when you raised your voice even with Emmett, and then we had a lot more. So I started raising my voice, but like in the beginning, I was like, don't even talk to him that loud.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Don't
Yeah.
get loud with him. Don't get loud
Yeah.
with him.
Little things like that.
And again, it's all about how we were raised, because I think about, like, my parents raised their voice with us all the time. Like, we weren't allowed to come in the house after school. Like, if you walked in the house after school, you were told to get your butt back outside. And that was just life for us, was that way. Your mom was probably the exact opposite of that. So she was very nurturing, and she would rather have you guys around and in the house and things like that. So, I come from a place where I believe I am raising functioning members of society.
Yeah.
I'm trying to raise kids to be able to be independent, be able to survive on their own, take care of life, and not need me.
Yeah. And you think that like starting at age 3?
Yes. I think
2, maybe.
I think whenever they start wiping their own butt, that's when it's over. That's when it's over for me.
They should just
Yes.
be able to do all the things.
Agreed. If you can wipe your own butt, you can make your own turkey sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, you cook dinner. I don't care. Yeah, it is definitely, like, raising children is definitely probably one of the biggest. But I mean, even when, there's a lot of things. Like, you are not afraid to, like, you called me last week and said, hey, I think you should add this to your sermon. You know what I mean? Like, those types of things.
Did you?
Yes, I did. You're welcome. You'll be happy to know. I think those types of things are hard for people to, like, if you would have called, or if I would have called a lot of my coworkers and said, hey, I think the next time you do this, you should do this as well. They might say, okay, but then they're going to ignore the actual advice because they see you as just trying to tell me what to do or whatever. So I think that's not how we operate. I put stock in what you say, and I value your opinion, and I think about it, and I, pray about it or whatever, and try to come up with, is this something that I actually need to do? There are times when you say something and I'm like, I disagree with that entirely, and I'm not going to do that. But again, not in a bad way. Like, it's not how I'm feeling led, and I've got to do what I think I'm supposed to do. But again, that's typically involved in a conversation about, oh, well, I know what you said, and I thought about it, but here's the reason I didn't feel like I was going to do that. Whether you agree or disagree, it's like, okay, well, that's my choice to make, and that's a decision that I have to make. We do not see finances the same way at all.
Oh, no.
At all. I'm a spender, you're a saver. I would spend every penny if I could. Like, this is a funny for everybody. It wasn't funny for me at the time, though. I logged onto my bank app one day, and it was no big deal. Like, the checking account is there, my credit card is there, and it's not a big deal. And then she said something to me one day about having transferred money from our savings account. And I knew we had a savings account online, but I was like, well, what savings account? And she said, well, I opened a savings account at the bank. I don't even have access to my own money, folks. She can see the savings account. She can see how much money's in it. I got no access to that money. What's weird is it's linked to the checking account. The money auto transfers on a certain date, but I have no control. I can't even see it.
I don't need to see it.
I'm going to go to the bank and ask if I can take money out of it, see what they tell me. Probably no. I'd be like, no. As a matter of fact, your name is on the do not deposit or the do not request list.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. Would not be surprised. But with finances, we have little rules. We try not to spend any large amounts of money without having conversations. And this is where we do the agree to disagree in some of the best. And anybody who knows me is going to laugh at this story. But anytime a used jumpsuit comes up for sale, Elvis jumpsuit comes up for sale, I immediately start drooling, right? Especially if it's in my exact size. Like, I am, and it's all I think about. It consumes me. It starts to, like, really consume me. And so I always ask 3 or 4 times whether or not I can buy it. Well, listen.
3 or 4.
No, listen. 3 or 4 times if I can buy it before I start to nag. So, like, the 3 or 4 times I'm like, hey, look, like, check this out. And I try to pretend like I'm not asking. I try to just show you and then gauge your reaction to the show before I start asking if I can buy it. And then I'll do the, so what do you think? So what are you thinking? Have you thought any about it? Yada, yada, things like that. And you always do the same thing. I not that you have tells, but if you don't answer me at all, I'm like, okay, she's thinking about it. And if you just give me a flat out no, I'm like, I might as well hang up my hat because it's not happening. But I don't.
I was just about to say you never do.
But I never do. I always come back for more. And then I get mad when you say no. Like when I ask a million times and you finally say, no, you're not. We can't afford it. You don't have the money for it. We're not doing it. And then I'm mad because I didn't get my way. But I get over it pretty quickly because what are you going to do? Do you know what I mean? But I would spend every penny we had on stupid things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you're thinking about our future and what about when you want to retire or if we have to put a kid through college. Like, you saved all of that money for kids' camps this year. Our kids are doing way too many camps.
That's true.
It's nuts. But you knew to set that money aside so that we could send the kids to camp so we could afford to send them. I would have spent every penny of that.
I know. That's why I put it in the savings account that you don't
that I
have
can't
access
see.
to.
That's messed up. Messed up.
I think with money too, or finances, it's part of that, like, agree to disagree. There's been some give and take
Oh, for sure.
with, although I might not agree with, oh, you're going to spend this much or you're buying that, but I also know that we can't save every,
Yeah.
like, I've had to be like, okay, whatever, on several jumpsuits
Yeah.
specifically recently, but over 12 years it happens all the time. It's
Well, and I think the thing to think about, though, the purpose for that conversation, the money conversation, is that it can go one of two ways. You can say no every time, and then I can be mad at you every time, or we
Right.
can have a conversation. And again, sometimes we have to, like, because I admit fully, there's no denying that I can be very childish when it comes to something that I really want. Like, I obsess over it and I think about it all the time. Where does Easton get it? Gee, I don't know. But when you tell me no, like, there's a certain part of me that gets upset, but not at you. It's at the situation. Like, I really want one and I don't understand why I can't. I work all the time. And that's just running through the logic that every person thinks when they can't have something that they want.
Yeah.
But you're not the bad guy in that. So being mad at you for it is not logical. It's emotional at that point.
Right.
And so what's funny is that I'm the logical brain. You're the emotional brain for the most part in our marriage.
Yeah.
And so when that flip flops, now we've got two emotional brains. Like, I'm upset with you and you're like, why are you upset with me?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And so I think we have found a nice balance in that logical and emotional, which is an important part of that give and take. And,
Mm-hmm.
There is never a right answer when you're making a hard decision. I remember when we took the kids out of school to do homeschool, that was months of conversations and me poking holes in theories. And you're like, well, I think that I can. And I'm like, no, I agree that I think that you can. It's not that. It's, homeschool kids tend to get a little on the weird side. And, what about this? And can they still do those extracurriculars? Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Now what are we going to do? What if we want to move? All of those questions that I ask.
Yeah.
But that's because my brain is logical and yours is emotional. And so your decision to pull the kids out was you wanted them to be home and safe. Like, when I say home, it used to be Emmett would get off the bus at 4:00. He had to be at the soccer field at 4:15, and it took 15 minutes to get to the soccer field. So there was no time for a snack unless he was eating in the car. There was no rest for anybody else getting home. It was immediately go, go, go. And homeschooling them alleviated all of that.
Yeah.
And so it allowed us to be more flexible with our family time. There was a lot of perks to it, but there was a lot of nervousness to it because we didn't know what it was going to be like.
It was very unknown.
Yes, very unknown. But it also helped us identify Easton's behavioral issues, like what works and what doesn't work, instead of just sending him to school and making him somebody else's problem. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we felt that. And all of the teachers, they always had great things to say about him. It wasn't like he got to school and he would just flip a switch and turn into a monster.
Yeah.
But at some point we knew that switch could flip and we didn't know how do you warn people? How do you regulate? What do you do? And so we knew that we were cognizant of that. And we made some of those homeschool decisions for that reason, which is still kind of crazy that we've done that for a year and we're going to do it again. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, especially when the weather's nice. Like you said the other day, the weather gets nice.
You don't want to be inside.
Yeah.
Schoolwork.
And it's also weird. Like the neighbor kids come down to play after school, but we've been playing all day because homeschool, focusing on one kid, a specific subject for an hour a day. Like they're getting, I don't want to say more education. I don't want to discredit what teachers are doing, but you have one-on-one time, whereas the teacher has 1-on-28 or 1-on-30 time. So it is much.
Yeah.
They don't get the same
it's
level of
easier
attention.
For them to go at their pace.
Yes.
Like for some kids, it's slower. For some kids, it's faster. We can, like, if it clicks, okay, we're going on to the next thing. It's not.
We don't have to wait for it to click for everybody.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So
I remember Adeline counting to 30.
Oh, Lord.
That was like the most painful thing in the world. Because she would get to 29 and go to what, 40?
Any other number but 30, really.
Yeah. She would just could not get it. And the other day we were riding in the car and I can't remember, somebody said something, like they counted several numbers. And then she went all the way to 100 from wherever they left off. And now she's just got it.
Yeah.
But if we would have left her in school and she would have been doing that at school, she wouldn't have had somebody who was patient enough to sit with her through all of those like single moments where it's not 57. Stop and think. Start again. Like she wouldn't have had that. It would have just been, well, she didn't get it, but we got to move on because everybody else did. So, it definitely being able to move at your own pace is nice. And with Easton, it's keeping him entertained. It has to challenge him and mean something to him.
Yes.
It can't just be like, writing sentences to him is a punishment. Hold on, I'm thinking. My brain it literally just dropped out of my brain that fast. Because I don't even know what I was talking about.
Oh, gosh.
All right, pivot.
Moving on.
What other stuff have we agreed? I mean, politics we've always agreed to disagree on, and we both were raised with different political views, so very different, as a matter of fact, and none of that has really ever affected us. Again, we have those conversations, but we've also learned that we have those conversations with each other and not with everybody else.
Right.
Like when we talk about something, we'll sit down and it's not like, oh, we're going to sit at the table tonight and I'm going to educate you on why you should vote for this or that. It's casual conversation standing in the kitchen, me asking questions. Why do you think that way? And you saying, well, yeah, but why do you see it that way? That's a huge difference maker in how we treat each other and how we treat other people. Like I can be in a room with anybody politically and it doesn't bother me because I'm used to being able to have inquisitive conversations, like genuinely inquisitive conversations, and not like I'm not taking offense to how you see me, and I'm not trying to feel like I need to defend myself to you. But I also want you to know you don't have to defend yourself to me.
Yeah.
I just want to talk to you. I love to know the way people think. That's one of my favorite things. I love to know what makes people tick. And it's interesting, again, for you and I, very different on what makes us operate. And we'll do, at some point, love languages, I'm sure, and just how different we are in that world, too.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Very, very much so. Very much so.
I think we also have to agree to disagree on our television preferences.
Oh, my gosh. I can't even be in the room when you watch TV. I can't. I don't get it. Like, how many seasons of SVU can you make?
I think we're at like 25.
Yeah, exactly. And we should have stopped at like 4. All right. Okay. And then you finished Manifest.
Mm-hmm.
I made it to like season 3, season 4.
I think there were only 4 seasons.
When they find the tail, maybe I shouldn't. I'm gonna anyway. When they find the tail fin of the plane and like they touch it, and like I'm like, nah, I'm out. This is weird. We've escaped the weirdness of the initial. Like we've gone too far.
You have to see it through.
No, it doesn't matter how it ends. It's gonna end poorly, in my opinion. And
it did.
And I can't get you to watch anything that I like. Well, we agree on the Connors and Young Sheldon.
Yeah.
And Big Bang. Like those are the ones that we agree on. Beyond that, But I'm a documentaries and like
You go from documentaries, which I'm not trying to watch TV to learn about something
Yeah,
right
I
now.
am.
I'm trying to relax.
I am.
And to the dumbest shows on television.
I am offended.
Like, you have two very opposites.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, but that's my life in general. I'm very eclectic. Everything about me is like that.
Mhm.
Like I like to have nice things, but I also like to have quirky, like off the wall kind of odd things.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't have like a specific taste in anything that I collect or anything that I enjoy. I enjoy a lot of stuff. Honestly, from music, you can put me in 70s, 80s, 90s country and even some early 2000s, and I'll thrive. Love it. Know most of the words, which you can attest to. You can put me in 90s boy bands. I'm happy in that genre. And not even just the boy bands. We can talk like Christina and Britney and all of those because that was popular when I was
Yeah.
growing up, so I know it. But you can also put me in any vintage rock category and I'm good. Like I can live there. I have yacht rock programmed in my car, and you will honestly, every time I get in the car and you've driven it, you've changed it.
I don't want to listen to that.
And I love it. I'm like, yeah, baby. It's soothing to me. And we also, I would say we share our taste in worship music. Like I don't like Christian music. I like worship music. Big
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, big difference. But not everybody sees that or agrees with that. But it is a world
Yeah.
of difference. So
That's our radio station that we can listen
yes,
to together.
that's what we
is praise
turn
and
on.
worship.
So we turn on in the car when we're in the car together. Or maybe we play music trivia and you're trying to find a song
You don't know.
that I don't know.
Yeah.
And again, in any of those genres, it's probably pretty hard to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Probably pretty hard to do.
I like to play guess the song before, or
Three notes in, before the
any
words start. Yeah, no words. Yeah.
You're really good at that.
But you've also learned I'm really good at just random trivia.
Yeah. It's annoying.
But now,
You don't even read books, and you were answering questions about books.
because there's just some things you just know. There's just some things in the world you just know.
That was just stupid.
Just some things you just know. I remember the one where you asked me the name of Elvis's barber, and when I answered,
And you knew it.
when I answered that, you looked at me like I had lost my ever loving mind.
I don't even know the name of your barber. Like, I know the boy's barber. How would you know anybody else's barber?
Well, he traveled with Elvis for so long. It was just like when you read Elvis stories, you hear his name, you know that he exists. So, yeah, it's Larry Geller for anybody that's wondering. By the way, just go ahead and put that out there for you. Now you know the useless trivia.
Oh my.
But I think our lives in general have not become giving in on our opinions or giving up on what we believe in or what we were taught or what we think is right, as much as it is saying, I want you to value my opinion as much as you want me to value your opinion, and that's just the respectful thing to do.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be, and listen, we're not going to know whether we're right or not until our kids have grown up. Honestly,
Yeah.
when our kids grow up, you know, your gentle parenting style may be working. And I have had to learn with Emmett specifically, he's very emotional. If I get loud with him, he cries immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't, there are certain things I can't say to pick on him, like, because it hurts his feelings. The way I was raised, you just toughened up and you dealt with it. But I'm learning that that's not fair to him, and that in order for him to be able to function in society, he has to have a lot of extra boosts of confidence.
Yeah.
And so, like, when he plays a soccer match and he comes off the field and he's lost, I can't say, man, that was a rough game. I have to say, buddy, you did your best. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I am sitting in the stands miserable watching them get their butts whooped. But if I tell him that, it's not going to feel good.
Yeah.
Easton, on the other hand, he comes off the field and goes, that sucked.
Yeah.
Like, it's very different in how you.
Parenting different kids.
Yes. Because with 5 kids, every one of them is a different kid. They have a
Mhm.
different personality and they want to be treated differently.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a blanket rule for everybody. In our house, one of the things that we do are check marks. Now, we have tried everything with Easton to get his behaviors under control. Everything. We've tried everything. He goes to therapy, and like she gives us tips and tricks. You're constantly reading a book about oppositional defiance disorder or ADHD, all of those things. And one of the things we learned is that having consequences, like visible consequences, is helpful. And so we started check marks. And Easton, being the kid that he is, once he understood the process of check marks, he just pushed it to the limit. So it's 3 check marks and then there's a punishment. So if you hit 3, is it on 3 there's a punishment? Or is
Yes.
it you 3 freebies?
2 freebies.
2 freebies and then a punishment.
Yeah.
He would get both freebies every time.
Like, and not even care. Where the goal of check marks is like, this is your warning.
Yes.
And for 2 of the other children, it was like, oh my goodness, I
If
have
they
one
get
check mark.
one,
Like,
it's
this is
meltdown.
terrible.
Yes.
I
yeah.
need to be on my best behavior because I have one check mark.
Yeah.
And it is, that system works for them. And like 2 check marks is really, oh my goodness, you know. And Easton was like, 1, 2, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll kind of I'll try my best to straighten up now, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna rip off with whatever I want to
He
for
just-
the first 2.
Yeah, the first 2. And it would be first thing in the morning he was
Yeah.
doing it. It didn't matter to him. So for him, now it's 1 check mark, and here's your punishment. 2 check marks, here's your punishment. 3 check. So he sees the other kids get 2 chances, and he doesn't. And so I think he's cognizant of that
Mm-hmm.
at this point. So now he's trying not to even get his 1. And it's little steps like that, like, I'm like, he breathed funny, give him a check mark. And you're like, come on, really? But it's just a very different parenting style.
Yeah.
I'm also like, I tend to have less patience for little things. I tend to, like, my fuse is much shorter for the dumb things. Adeline doing cartwheels in the house. That kid does not walk anywhere. She tumbles, she rolls, she flips, she cartwheels, she backbends, she kicks over, whatever she may do, but she never does anything. She never just walks. It drives me nuts. But
I don't even care.
I know, it doesn't bother you. I'm in the basement working in the office and you hear thump, 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 because she's up there doing back bends and kickovers.
Mhm.
Drives me crazy.
Yep.
Drives me crazy. But yeah, I would say, just generally speaking, one of the things, if I could speak wisdom into any relationship, it is learn when to yield to your spouse, yield to the person who you're in a relationship with, and just say, I don't have all of the right answers. You may not either, but I want to value your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Just being respectful.
That's hard.
It is hard to, especially if you're passionate about something,
Yep.
to have to say, okay, I'm gonna not so much give in,
Yeah.
but I'm going to give a little.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% correct on this, or I don't know that
Yeah.
I'm correct on this, but I respect you enough to hear you out, and
Yep.
I'm, just it's the give and take.
Yeah.
But it does come down to just respecting the other person and valuing their opinion for what it is and what it means to them.
And one of the things that for you and I that I think we should just quickly share is that we have enough respect for one another that we don't often, and sometimes, and I'm usually the guilty party, we don't often go to bed mad at each other. We don't often like allow something to boil over. It's okay, I'm upset, I'm going to walk away, I'm going to have my moment. And we never have those conversations in front of the kids. Like at all cost, we try to shield the kids from any of those like hard conversations,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to parenting styles and what we're going to do,
Yeah.
like how we're going to handle certain situations. So those are all just, it's great wisdom. Put it in your belt, use that tool however you need, but learn that you can't always be right. You won't always be right. And you're going to have to be willing to bend.